All right, here we go. Episode 2. I'm going to read a little paragraph from the Norwich Cadet Creed, which is where I graduated from, and some of the people listening will know that, and it'll apply once you read it. But one of the paragraphs is I believe the fundamental problem of society is to maintain a free government wherein liberty may be secured through obedience to law, and that a citizen soldiery is the cornerstone upon which such a government must rest. So when we talk about a citizen soldier, all you guys that are joining me, we have a citizen soldier next to us. We have First Sergeant Jason Stokes from the Ohio National Guard joining us today on episode 2. So welcome, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
We were arguing for some of the old timers, Master Sergeant, First Sergeant's the same thing, but it's all right.
You just can't let that go, can you?
No, I can't, but it's fun.
Did you have a First Sergeant that beat you up?
No.
You sure?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
But maybe some warrant officers, some other NCOs did along the way. So we're going to get started here. This is episode 2, like we said. If you guys have noticed, we'll talk about something real quick. It is Pours with Patriots now, formerly known as Whiskey with Warriors. We could have changed it to, what is it, Wheat with Warriors? We'll get to that later on when we talk about some of Jason's hobbies. But thanks for joining us down here, Jason. Not your first time here. We first got together 2020.
Right before the deployment.
Right before you're heading over to Operation Inherent Resolve. So welcome back. Glad to have you on board. So for the couple guys here that know you, so just tell us a little about you. Obviously, Ohio National Guard, from Ohio originally.
Born and raised.
Sorry about that.
I know. Lived on in Gahanna, so where I went to high school. I graduated in 2005, and as we'll talk about, joined actually before I graduated.
Yeah, no, you can talk about it now. I mean, we're fine. Yeah. So I've been asking people because military. Anybody else in the military besides you, or
my grandfather was in the Air Force. He was a smart one. My brother was in the Army Reserves for a few years. My wife,
he's the smart one. The Army.
My wife was active duty.
I didn't know that, actually.
Yeah, ask her about it next time. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
awesome.
Had an uncle in the Navy, a couple uncles in the Navy, but it's not a huge lineage of military service.
No, but a lot. I mean, like I mean, you say that it's always fun that people say that, but it is a big deal. I mean, we had Daniel last time. I think he was the first person in his family. So 2 to 3 is a pretty significant lineage. So that's pretty awesome. So you did allude to it. You actually You actually joined the Ohio National Guard in 2014.
2004.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2004. You gave me the wrong dates earlier. But we talked about it. So I'm an active guy. So a lot of that time, no National Guard experience, but I call it the delayed entry program. We talked earlier today, but it's actually the recruit sustainment program. And why don't you talk about that a little bit? Because I had no idea that's what you guys did in the National Guard here in Ohio.
Yeah. So as soon as football season was over, I went with my recruiter and enlisted. And when you enlist in the National Guard, you pick your job. You actually pick the unit. Picked a unit that had helicopters. That was not my first choice. Originally, I wanted to be an MP, and my mom said absolutely not. This was in 2004 at the height of the war. I was still 17. So actually, I guess really the beginning of the war. And I needed her to sign. And she said no. My dad said, well, what difference does it make? I'll go ahead and sign for him. And she said, if something happens to him, I will never forgive you and I will leave you. So my dad decided not to sign that paperwork to be an MP. My recruiter at the time worked at Rickenbacker, and he said, hey, there's helicopters down here. You want to come check out helicopters? I scored high enough to be a mechanic.
It's not that hard to believe, but.
Right. Yeah. So he took me down. I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Working on Blackhawk. So I told my mom that I was going to be a mechanic. So to her, that meant, I'd stay inside the wire, stay inside the fob. And within 3 years, I was a crew chief and a machine gunner on helicopters right before my deployment. So
I have to interrupt you because I hope my dad's listening. He doesn't have Facebook, but I hope he's listening on somebody else's Facebook, so I think he is. But that kind of hit home to me because my dad actually, when it was time to enlist, he decided to enlist before he got drafted to go to Vietnam. He wanted to be an MP. Dad, I won't tell you anybody why you at first couldn't eventually become an MP, but he actually became a small arms repairman. And as a small repairman, he ended up working on machine guns, and then my dad found himself as actually a door gunner on a Huey in Vietnam. So it's kind of funny how it kind of reminds me of the same thing of hearing those stories of like his family thought that he was doing something pretty safe because he wasn't doing that, but come to find out that he's doing something, I think that's equal, super dangerous, and we'll talk about that later or whatever. But that's kind of funny because you actually took a question of why you decided to go and do that. That makes sense. It's kind of funny that how it hits home and sorry to interrupt you on that, but I just thought that was it's kind of funny.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
So anyway, joined November 4th, 2004, and in the Guard, that's your basic entry for pay date. So that's when my contract started. They put you through. So I was assigned to the unit. They put you through the RSP, or the Recruit Sustainment Program, and you actually go to a unit and drill once a month. So I had uniforms. I was getting paid my 1 weekend a month, and they just teach basic soldiering. So drill and ceremony, land nav. They even broke out M16s for us. How to take them apart, how to put them back together, how to clean them. So in the Guard, that was. I had a leg up when I showed up to basic training, and they had a lot of soldiers that had just come back from basic training that would show up and help teach. So we had the ability to talk to someone who just got back from basic training and kind of let us know what to expect and things like that. So it's a really good program. The Guard still does it, but yeah, it was extremely beneficial.
So are most, like, you're in the Guard now, how many years? It's what? Do the math. I'm horrible at math.
Just over 17. Okay. So November was 17. So 17 years and 4 months now.
So is that normal now are most of the Ohio National Guard?
Yeah. So
doing that?
They still do that.
What percentage do you think?
I would say a decent percentage, because like I said, your basic entry for pay date starts right then. Right. And as a high school kid who I always knew I was going to join the Army. I just didn't, I just thought I was going to be an MP. Thank God I wasn't. At the end of the day, got to thank my mom for that.
For all you MPs though, it's an awesome profession.
Yeah. I'm not knocking any of you MPs out there. No, it's not that, but, it was, a lot of the kids, they do join before they graduate high school, especially with the Guard paying 100% of your tuition and things like that. It's definitely a good avenue.
So I know just, some of the stuff you shared, you actually were not working full time, but you actually had a civilian job before. So we talk about a lot of people that everybody here should know, but maybe there aren't some people that don't. But most people in the Ohio National Guard have a civilian job, and then 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, or as you've seen in the past few years, that turns into a year, few months in some other places. So you actually, what were you doing before you actually went because you're right now an active?
No, so I'm back as a traditional Guard soldier right now.
Okay.
I'm off those.
I didn't know you changed that.
No, I'm off those orders right now. So I work full time for the federal government, which helps when I need to leave. They're extremely understanding of that. I know a lot of people struggle with their employers are like, no, you have to be here that weekend. Like, we have a big project and you have to be here that weekend, or no, you have to be here in summer. I'm sorry, your dates don't line up, but you have to be here. Now, legally they can't do that, but that can create a hostile work environment. And that's something that a lot of people have to really deal with, which is unfortunate. But it is a struggle. It's a balancing act. I was gone for a year. Got back in May of 2021. And then in December got activated for the local Ohio COVID mission. So I'd basically just gotten back to work, just got a handle on, relearning my job. And then I leave again for 2 months. All right. So it is a struggle. Fortunately, I have an employer who, they're the government, so they have to.
Yeah, the federal government. Like, what are you going to do? No, I think it's interesting because, like I said, my active time was majority active time. I did 2 years in the Army Reserve after I got out, but I always thought that was interesting. And it's funny. Jason has shared some stuff with me. It's not funny, but Ohio National Guard. You just got off of mobilization, or are you still on that or off now?
No, I'm
okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that, but you just talk about what he's done. So, as an Ohio National Guardsman, he deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom in 2019.
2009.
No, I'm sorry. Why do I keep adding 10 years to it? I don't know what that is. Yeah. Sorry. Maybe I've had too much whiskey tonight, but, and then you deployed to the Haiti earthquake relief in 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and then to Hurricane Maria in 2017. And then Operation Inherent Resolve, which is from 2020 to 2021. So I think that's interesting. Is like, as a former active duty guy, like, we kind of expected to do this thing. So it's always interesting when you sent that to me to see that you're supposed to be in Ohio, but you're really going all over the place. And that's one of the amazing things. The quote I start off with about a citizen soldier, that's pretty amazing. That at a moment's notice, you're asked not to just only take care of fellow Ohioans, but to fulfill your mission for the U.S. Army. Right. So I really appreciate that, and it's pretty complex. I mean, one of the questions I've had is how do you mentally, like, take one hat off as a civilian and then back into, like, First Sergeant Stokes, or Crew Chief Stokes? How do you do that? What's your thought process, or what could you give other hints to other?
I've been doing it so long, I think it's so seamless at this point. When I was younger, I worked full time for the National Guard, so there wasn't much transition. But it can get, when I was even younger, when I first joined, it's kind of a shock. It's like, I have to do this one weekend a month. Like, my weekends for the next 2 years are scheduled, and there's no real getting around that. Right. My summers are scheduled. There's no real getting around that. There's school requirements, additionally, the NCOES schools to get promoted. There's all those requirements too. It is a bit of a shock. Like, when I go to a school and you end up on an active duty post, it's a little different than showing up to drill. All the guys at drill are my buddies, and especially in aviation, a lot of us go by first name, just because we have that you have to have that tight knit camaraderie with your crew. But it's a challenge, because there's times that family things are going on, and you're like, no, I gotta go to drill. Don't want to go to drill. It's just, you got to do it. I don't know how else to say it, other than you just have to do it.
So how are the younger kids going? So I have a 22-year-old, a 19 about to be 20, a 17-year-old, and like, them having to plan out their weekends for like the next couple of years, I couldn't think of anything more painful for them. So how are, like, the younger guardsmen? Are you seeing, like, the same type of commitment we have, or is it more of a struggle? Especially now in your new role as a first sergeant, you're going to have to be the person that kind of grabs them by the neck or kicks them in the butt, or however you want to put it. Is it? Are we seeing the same type of people, or is that something you're challenged with more than when you were?
We have a very so when I came in 2004, the war had really just kicked off, really. And so most of the people that were there, they were there because of what was going on. 9/11 was still very recent in everyone's minds. Now it's, you have some of that younger generation that you're
allowed to speak.
I know. The young kids that I have, and I call them my kids. They're extremely reliable. We have a big gap right now. Retention in the Ohio National Guard is not very good. So I have a lot of young kids and a lot of people that, like me, that have been in for 17 plus years. So there's not that 10 to 12 year soldier that, knows what they're doing. So there's a lot more mentoring that goes on with the younger. The older soldiers are mentoring the younger soldiers more, instead of that mid-grade soldier who's been in for 10 or 12 years mentoring those new kids. And we have a lot of people that got promoted very quickly because there's open slots. So that adds a layer of, now I have to mentor this very young junior NCO there's no senior NCO mentorship there for him. So it's a struggle. Fortunately, I in a flight company, it's very easy to get rid of somebody. So the ones in the flight, if you're not cutting it because in the flight company, we still have to meet.
Is that like pushing them out of the Blackhawk as you're flying away? Or are we talking about the
the
official way of doing it?
No, we
Like,
just push them into a
okay.
maintenance company. But we still have the pilots still have to meet active duty Blackhawk pilot flight minimums. So our pilots are still flying 96 hours a year. So in aviation, in a line unit, it is not 1 week in a month. I'm usually in once a week, at a minimum every other week, plus my 1 week in a month. I do basically the double what the general National Guard requirement is, and that's just to keep my job. The ones that can't cut it, we send them off to either maintenance or something like that, to where they don't have that extra requirement on them. So in the line unit, it's a little bit better because they have to be actively engaged if they want to stay with us. And those young kids, they're shooting machine guns from helicopters and they're not even old enough to drink. So it's I don't struggle with it as much as other first sergeants in the unit.
So a question to go back to the crew chief. So you become a Blackhawk, just for my knowledge, because I think I've forgotten or I may not have known. But so I joined the National Guard, I joined active duty, and I want to be a Blackhawk pilot. How do you get from being just the maintenance guy to actually being in the back of the aircraft with the pilots? What's the process of that? Or is it everybody get that chance? Or
so right now, yeah, because when I came in, there were no direct from AIT into flight company spots. You'll see a lot of that now because we're so short on people. I spent 3 years in a maintenance company, and that's typical. And then you have to interview. You sit on a board with the flight instructors and the standardization instructors in the flight companies, and they interview you. And at the end of that week, they say, "Yeah, we'll take this guy. We'll take this guy. Those other 4, no, they're not ready yet." That's how it used to be.
Right.
That's not the case now.
So flight company is you're on the aircraft, you're maintaining them.
Yep.
You're crew chiefing. Yep. And then you have the maintenance companies is actually.
So the maintenance companies do the heavy maintenance.
Okay.
Kind of the rule of thumb is if it's going to be down longer than 8 hours or so, then the heavy maintenance people take care of that. Otherwise, every crew chief, and the Army is the only ones that do it like this. Every crew chief is a qualified mechanic. The Navy, the Air Force, Marines, they go to school to be a crew chief. All that school in the Army is done internally at the unit. So we bring someone into the flight company, and then the flight instructors and the standardization instructors train those people and sign them off to be a crew chief.
Nice. So I love learning stuff. It's awesome. It's funny. I probably learned that and just forgot it, but that's pretty cool. But what I heard from that is that the Army is better. If any of the Air Force guys are listening,
absolutely.
But so one of the things, like I just look back when I look back at all the things you've done. Like I felt like when I was in the Army, I had like one goal. You know what I mean? I was stationed somewhere. I might deploy depending on how the world events change. If not, I go to some training areas. So. And it was really like one role, you know what I mean? Like if that makes sense. But so you deployed to Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
You deployed for a couple different relief missions for a hurricane, and then an earthquake, and then most recently, if people don't know that you're listening from out of the state of Ohio, is that the Ohio National Guard mobilized some National Guardsmen to go and backfill hospitals.
Right.
So of those deployments you've had over your past 17 years, what was most difficult of those? Or is that easy to say? Or are they all, what was the most challenging?
The 2009 deployment to Iraq, it was my first one.
Okay.
I didn't know what to expect. I'd been in the Army for 4 years. The unit, our unit had only deployed once before that to Kosovo and Bosnia. So this was the first combat deployment for this, probably 95% of the people in this unit. I was a young crew chief, maybe 100, 150 hours. Didn't know what to expect. So that was definitely the hardest. This last one to Saudi Arabia sucked.
Yeah, I did actually forget that, but yeah,
that I mean, it sucked, but I knew exactly what to expect.
Right.
So just that experience really.
So the hardest was the hardest because you didn't know. I mean,
right.
Like to me, I just look at I look at my times like when I was in Afghanistan in 2003. The things I'm most bothered about are like the effect of the civilians. I don't know if that makes sense. So to me, I was expecting to say, going down to the earthquake relief or the hurricane relief, where you just see those things. But that's interesting. That makes sense. I mean, I think we all were. Anybody that went to Iraq or Afghanistan back in the day when things were going down, if you said you weren't scared or nervous, you're a liar. So that's fine.
No, the Haiti mission was just something completely different. So we were in a fob in the middle of the jungle, and the fob barrier was a roll of concertina wire. We had a very small LZ for 2 Blackhawks and 2 LUH Lakota aircraft, and it almost felt like we were in a zoo, because the locals would come out and they would just sit there and stare at you all day long. They'd ask you for food and stuff like that, and not supposed to give it to them, which is hard because there's stuff that I don't, we lived off MREs for 4 weeks. Half of that stuff I don't eat, and not supposed to give it away to them. You don't want to encourage that behavior. Yeah. But it's hard to throw food away when you got someone there who obviously needs food. Our drinking water, we had a ROPU unit, the reverse osmosis water
purifying unit or something.
Yeah, what was that movie with Andy? Was it Andy
Pauly Shore?
Or Pauly Shore, that's who it was.
Where they decided to the buddy entry, and then what job can I join that I'll never deploy, and they actually got deployed to the original Desert Storm.
So we had one of those units with us because we had to have purified drinking water, and the excess water that we didn't, or that they couldn't use, that wasn't, basically the runoff after it's purified, they ran that out the back of the fob. And, the locals are coming and taking showers in that. They're washing their clothes in that. Not that the water was contaminated or it was probably cleaner than any water they had. They're out there taking showers, they're washing their clothes, they're getting their drinking water. So that's kind of tough to see at times. But we make the best of it and know that, we are helping them, and they may not see it directly. Hurricane Maria was devastating to that island. The infrastructure of that island, they have one power plant on the south side of the island that feeds the entire island, and that's where the hurricane hit. So you knock out your main source of power, the entire island's out of power, and those power lines are ran across the jungle, so they had to rerun new power lines. That's why it took so long to get it done. But our main mission was loading the aircraft up with food and water and taking it to wherever we could. Mm-hmm. We would take two local Puerto Rican National Guard. We actually jumped in with them, and there's a whole backstory around FEMA and whatnot. But we would jump in their aircraft, and they knew where to go. They knew what places actually needed the food and water. And we'd land in the middle of the jungle, land on top of mountaintops, and dump off a pallet of water and a pallet of food. That mission was the most fulfilling, and you got to immediately see the individual, walking up to get a box of food or a bottle of water that you were assisting. So
I think it's funny you said, because my wife always some people know I do share some stuff with people that what I've done, but it's funny. This is always, I'm glad I did this just because this just kind of stirs up some things in my past. But when we were there, one of the things we did in 2003 was we called them a team village with the 82nd, and we would literally send a company commander would go out with humanitarian supplies to whatever town or whatever they told us to go to, and that's always of all the bad things you see, that was always the thing that grounded me of how much you were helping, bringing a bottle of water, right. Books and shoes and all these kind of things. That was always one of the things that really, when I'm struggling with some of the things that you see that we all see, that's I kind of all the bad things we've done or whatever you think you've seen, it always makes my heart melt. And my wife always was like, you should talk to people more about that. But that's one of the things that nobody really talks about, honestly. The Army, the military, it's always this, the shock and awe. It's our job is to go in and just kill people, blow up stuff. But all the branches for the past few years have been doing great things of providing help to people. And it's great to hear you say that. That's one of the things too, that always makes me feel good. I can remember going to places in the middle of nowhere that I'll never see again, but just the look of oh my gosh, there's Americans here helping us. It makes a huge impact. It really helps me forget about, leaving 2 kids at home with my wife. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And it's even more amazing to me. Like I'm being completely honest, we obviously make fun of National Guard people a lot if you're on active duty. But when you really think about it, like we expect you, like a lot of people think like, oh, you're just gonna, when something happens in Ohio, you're gonna help Ohio. So it's pretty amazing. And
I've done more help outside the state of Ohio than actually.
Yeah, I mean, no, it's true. I mean, it's funny. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. It's pretty humbling to understand that you guys really really signed up to help a state, and most of your time is spent outside the state.
Right.
We won't talk about what you were doing in the state recently, because we're going to stay away from politics here on the post. But we'll leave it at that. So I think it's time, like Jason's over there milking his glass of bourbon. So it's time for him to
it's all the bourbon. It's all the bourbon we had beforehand.
You had the same thing. You had the same thing before, right? Like you're
this is what I'm drinking right now.
Yeah. So I'm going to join you. So I'm asking my guests to bring bottles with them to talk about, to drink. So one of the first bottles that we're doing is actually a Maker's Mark Private Select. All ranks by vets, for vets, and all those Maker's Mark Private Selections. They're pretty common nowadays, I guess. Yeah. But the program started in 2016. It came on board after the huge success of Maker's 46 in 2010. But the Maker's Mark Private Select program starts with casting Maker's Mark, and then what they add is 10 different stave combinations. So there's 5 different staves that you can use: baked American puree, seared French cuvee, Maker's Mark 46, roasted French mediant, and French or toasted French spice. So with those five staves and the 10 combination, the 10 staves that you put in there, there's actually, according to Maker's Mark, 1,001 different combinations. Considered a single barrel, but what's interesting about it is actually single barrel. But what's cool about it is it can be replicated because of those staves. Like a lot of people, we went down there a couple of years ago, and that was kind of interesting to learn. So once you have that recipe, whether you decide, if you guys, I mean, the bottle there, if you can see it, I don't know if you guys can see it there, but this one has like 1 baked American pure, 5 seared, but you can see the recipe there. But you can actually go down to Maker's Mark and replicate that. So if you really hit it out of the park and do that, you can replicate that, which was totally cool.
Yeah. OHLQ hit one of those out of the park.
Yeah,
the milkshake.
Yeah, and they actually brought it back. That's an example. So for those outside of or in Ohio or outside of Ohio, they did recently this past winter bring back their most popular Maker's Mark Private Select. So the Maker's Mark Private Select, my only hit against them always is the price. $69.99 is a little steep, but it's really not. It's a non-age stated. What's great about these, that the proof usually comes in between 107 to 114 proof, depending on what happens there, but really good, really, really unique. And it's always fun to have these because they're all so different. If you haven't been on that program, or if you're thinking about going down to a pick like that, a lot of people kind of throw Maker's Mark to the side. You should absolutely go on one of these picks. They're really cool. It's a lot of work, because if you're really serious about it, you can actually stay there forever until they kick you out, which is what happened when we went down last time. They were like, hey guys, figure out your thing and get out. But thanks for bringing that.
Yeah, and if anyone's listening and not watching, this pick was actually brought back to me by another veteran that we all know, and it's the all ranks by vets, for vets pick. So this came back from Fort Hood. So to the guy who brought that back for me, thank you.
So there's something actually did good come out of Fort Hood. So that's awesome.
It's
Andrew. Thank you, Andrew. It's actually pretty good. But thanks for getting me one too. By the way, you must have lost my DM or something. That's cool. But no, that's awesome. So again, thanks for bringing that. We'll get back to off the bourbon, because we don't want to focus on the bourbon. So Jason and I have been talking today, or back and forth. We talk pretty regularly, but one of the things that he brought up today, and it kind of ties into what he talked about earlier, is and what I saw with my dad is, hey, I'm going to become a crew chief on a Blackhawk. What could possibly go wrong, right? So today is actually, unfortunately, the 7-year anniversary of the crash of Mojo 69, which was a Blackhawk out of the Louisiana National Guard that killed 11 people, 4 crewmen, and then actually 7 MARSOC Marines 7 years ago. So the reason I brought that up is not to put a damper on things, but a lot of people listening, and for myself, I spent a lot of time in Blackhawks. I will not get back in another aircraft again.
I'll get you in one.
No, I don't. I probably would, but in all seriousness, like I think that's funny. Like we read about that today, and one of those things that we're not going to dive into. I mean, if you want to, you can. I don't care. But there's a lot of stuff that, like, if you read about it, correct me if I'm wrong, but the aircraft probably shouldn't have flown.
I mean, not to armchair quarterback it. One of the things that we stress very heavily is if there's anyone in the crew that is not comfortable to speak up, and that's maybe one of the hardest things I deal with is one of my young guys with 100 hours, and I'm in the aircraft with them 1,250 plus hours. I might be giving him a check ride, or I might be evaluating him, or I just might be one of the other crew members. But when they see someone like me that's been around a while, or you get a CW4 up front with 7,000 hours, well, he obviously feels okay with it, so it must be okay. And that's one of the hardest things to teach somebody is to speak up, because you've got this W4 with 30 years. 7,000 flight hours, and they're good with it, so it must be safe. So teaching the younger guys to speak up and be like, hey, something doesn't feel right, and having those, I've had to have conversations with those 30-year veteran pilots with 7,000 hours, like, hey, you cannot talk to these young guys like that, because you shut them down one time,
right.
they're never gonna speak back up. Pull them off the side, have a conversation, and figure out what their real concerns are. Because weather is probably one of the number one killers. It's rarely a maintenance error, and I don't remember the statistic. But even in a maintenance, something that's a maintenance issue ends up being a pilot error, because they made the wrong decision. And again, not to armchair quarterback any of that, because you're making that decision in a split second. But it's a dangerous business. I'd venture a guess to say that it's probably one of the more dangerous in a training scenario where you have a lot of accidents, and a lot of times when an aircraft crashes, there's very few survivors. It's a very, very scary situation for sure.
See, you're just reiterating why I'm not going to get back in that type of Army aircraft. I agree. I mean, I think it's like all the times that I've been involved in that, it is always funny when you get in there. Like, it's funny you said, because I find, there's a couple of my classmates maybe that listen, but they're Blackhawk. One of them's a Blackhawk pilot, and Army pilots are notoriously ego main. Like, I don't want to like, they have an ego. They can do it. I've done this before. I've done it 6,000 hours. Who you're talking about, but and the funny thing too is, like, not only at the pilot level, but also as when I read a little bit about Mojo 69, what I thought was interesting is there's a lot of controversy about the chain of command above saying, hey, let's stop this, and like, let's not do that. And we've all been there before. I've been in situations, and a lot of people on this listening have been there in the military, where everything you said, that like something in the back of your head doesn't sound right, but somebody above you is saying, like,
command pressure is a real thing.
You're gonna fucking do this, and
right.
and to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable with that. We again, I'm not armchairing what happened, but
no, not.
If that's something that I guess I'm speechless about, because we've all said that command influence, like the command pressure of, like, you're going to do this. This is what you're trained to do. I don't care what you think or what you're feeling. Just do it. And I wonder, at one of my life, how many times if somebody had the gall to step back, like that senior warrant officer or that young crew chief, and saying, like, dude, I'm not doing this. This doesn't make sense to me.
In that accident too, there was 2 aircraft. The first one, or the second one, said they picked up and said, nope, we made an attempt where this is not happening tonight. And 2 minutes later, the other one went down.
Yeah, because I saw that, like, when I was reading, it was like as soon as they got into the water, it was like 2 minutes above water, and they
hit so hard that they died instantly.
It's crazy.
And they got disoriented, which is a big thing. Spatial disorientation. Even something as simple as when you're sitting at a stoplight and the other car moves and you think you're going backwards, but multiply that times 100 and you're flying in an aircraft in the sky, with no frame of reference. I've been scared a few times, for sure. It still happens. I was fortunate on this last deployment. I was the NCOIC of our group, on the FOB we were at in Saudi, and I had some very, very strong senior warrants that were not afraid to say, no, we are not doing this. You guys are in a different country. You don't know what it's like down here. We're not going.
Right.
So very fortunate to have that type of leadership where I was at.
Well, I always laugh because you say that, like, I've been Blackhawks probably more than anything else, but like those times that, like, when you're landing, especially like in the desert and you can't even see anything, and I'm thinking, like, what in the fuck are we doing? Honestly, like, I mean, the best part is not to look, and the worst part, like, I remember one time, like, like, we have night vision goggles and watching, and I was like, I found the best way for me is just not to pay attention to what's happening, like, let you guys do your thing. And what I always loved is, like, you guys act like you're not scared, but I know you guys are like, this doesn't feel comfortable. I think I shared with you a story when I was in Afghanistan when this first lieutenant dusted out like 3 times, would not land the aircraft. And there was a warrant officer, CW3, with her, and I was like, for the love of God, just someone land this fucking Blackhawk so we can get off of it, because it was like, you were getting so close, and like you can't see anything. Again, I think the reason we talked about that is not to be a downer, but here's to the lost Marines and Army soldiers from Mojo. The reason I brought that up is it is a dangerous business. Like, even if you talked about earlier, you go in and do flight rides outside of your thing, and like just flying down to Cincinnati doing flights like that, it's a dangerous business. And
there's,
thank you for doing that.
If you look over the course of the last probably 2 years, there's been an extreme rise in aviation accidents, and like I said, it's rare that people survive. And the Army is trying to take a step back and figure out what the issue, like, what's the underlying issue. Obviously, if we're losing an aircraft a month, a lot of them in a training scenario.
Yeah.
So that's one of the worst outcomes of a training scenario is losing life.
Yeah, but yeah, and it's hard, but like we're seeing some comments here, like people are watching, but I wanted Jason to pay attention to the last comment. I'm out. I try not to empower my kids anymore. Try to keep them down, but as a first sergeant, that's what somebody just posted. Like, absolutely true. Empower subordinates, and we're all guilty of that. Like, you're a first sergeant now. Hopefully, you listen to the young crew chiefs, whoever is telling you that they don't feel right. I know I was guilty of it and said, like, who do you think you are? I know what I'm doing.
Well,
like, mind your own business, and that's kind of a dangerous thing, because, like you said, people see things differently, and that's important.
And it's more of not saying, hey, you're wrong, we're doing this anyway, but pulling them aside and saying, hey, what is your actual concern, and let me talk you through this of why myself and the other senior people don't think this is a concern, and you can still have your concern. We'll figure that out. But just getting that young guy, and I'm thinking of a scenario very specifically where he didn't say anything until he got back. I'm like, well, what good is that? Well, we're back now, so what good was that? He's like, well, it's just I was tired. I'm like, then you need to say something. I'm like, we'll figure it out. We'll come up with a plan. But telling me after the fact is not, And we had a couple scenarios where, we were flying in the dark. We don't know what was going on. Had no radio. We had one internal radio with the other aircraft we're flying with. We were flying a medevac mission. A guy had either rolled a truck or rolled an LMTV, and they were medevacing him to a hospital in Riyadh. We just had nothing. We were flying. We had very little response from the cockpit. So the mic model is a fully digital aircraft, and everything. All the controls felt fine. Everything felt fine. We had one internal radio that we could talk to the other aircraft, but we couldn't do anything else. And we're like, and it was nighttime, of course.
Did you have the 5G phone? That's why I'm smiling.
No.
Jason set down a 5G phone. and it totally messed up everything down here and audio wise. So he talked about how when you're in the aircraft and you have your phone, I'm thinking like, what in the fuck is a crew chief have their phone for? But in the bourbon world, I probably know why you had your phone with you. It's because you were trying to buy bourbon, which totally makes sense. But
I mean,
turn off the 5G feature and
luckily I had T-Mobile and I had full service while I was over there. But no, we were, and then so we're talking through it, and we're like, yeah, the aircraft's flying good. We can talk to the aircraft. We got to get this guy to the hospital. That's all we need. And then somebody flipped on a light switch and everything started working. But it's just, shit like that. But
yeah.
It's just with anything electronic, how often does your computer quit working and then it just, so same thing. But we sat there and had that discussion. We had some senior pilots and we talked through it, and we all decided that we were good. So we marched on. And thankfully nothing happened, or else, that would have been on the report. These idiots knew something was wrong and they kept flying anyway. Right. So, but it's all a calculation of risks.
Yeah. But you always say that. I can't, like, whoever the comment, like this new streaming thing, I can't, it doesn't tell who said that, but it's a real thing. I mean, I don't care if anybody in the military, whatever branch you in, like the pressure from higher people and the lower ranking people to be able to be empowered, is a tough thing. I mean, you talked about like pulling people aside. It would just be simply, in my day, was just like, hey dude, shut the fuck up. But
yeah, it's a kinder, gentler.
No, we didn't do that all the time. But and the reason I bring that up is like you have to translate into the real world. Like there's people here that have already had the military career, the same thing. In professional life, I have a new 23-year-old subordinate. So it's a different view. She has different views on things, and they're actually most of the time pretty spot on.
Right.
And that's really important, and especially like what you guys are doing every day. Someone that doesn't sense something and we always something like there's no it's like being a paratrooper that people are on as a paratrooper. Like there's no forgiveness. It's like if something's messed up, it's gonna be bad for somebody.
And kind of in a dark humor way, but we always say that we're just a tenth of a second behind the scene of the crash. So we're right there with them, and we're very fortunate in my unit that we have a lot of senior pilots to mentor a lot of the younger, fresh out of flight school, riding crotch rockets at 100 miles an hour. Can't kill me kind of guy. We have a lot of older senior warrants to really mentor those people. So fortunately, we don't have that a lot.
Yeah. No. So how do you cope with all the things you've seen? Like, you've seen some stuff that, you've seen the person really wounded in the back of a medevac. You've seen that person that acts like they haven't seen a bottle of water and probably not act like, but they haven't seen a bottle of water, like clean water, in a couple of weeks. Like, how do you deal with what you see? That's one of the things with Pours with Patriots is what's your coping mechanism? Is it whiskey? Is it,
I probably shouldn't say that. That's the wrong coping mechanism, right?
But it could be the wrong to some people, but it may be right to someone else. So I don't think that's a wrong.
No, I say that. Jokingly, but I don't know. I just feel like I've always been a mentally strong person. There were some things in 2009 that I know affected people a certain way that didn't affect me that same way. I don't know why. I wish I had that answer, because I know there's a lot of people out there that don't know how to cope with stuff like that. Veteran suicide is a huge thing right now, in a very negative way. So I don't have a good answer for that, unfortunately. I wish I did. I just try and move on to the next day.
I won't lie to you. Mine is sometimes like come down to the basement, drink a lot of whiskey.
Oh no, there's nights. So. There's absolutely, and I think that can be done healthily, with especially with friends and fellow veterans, to be able to to have those discussions. I have a lot of veteran friends in the same rank structure as me that, we can go out and we can talk, we can openly talk about this stuff. And where, uh, at your job, it would probably be very odd to have a discussion about suicide at the lunch table. Um, and it's not, I think that needs to happen more.
Right.
Um, you know, Over, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, we lost two to suicide in the same week. Almost back to back. So it's very unfortunate. I do know that I have a good group of friends that I know I can call you and be like, Jay, we need to have some whiskey and talk.
Mhm.
And it's funny, something that I was doing last couple of weeks. I had a bunch of people reach out to me and say, "Hey, are you okay?
Yeah.
Like, is everything okay?" And you were one of those people, and I'm like, "Yeah, no, everything is perfectly fine." Like, but I appreciate that.
Right.
Like, hey, are you okay?
And by the way, he was actually buying a huge ass truck and a third wheel, but everyone's worried about. But not to cut you off, but one thing I do want to say though is you did say something that I have to like maybe put a damper on, but like mentally strong. So everyone, I feel like whoever's listening and people like, or if you're listening and you lost someone to veteran suicide, everybody's mentally strong. I think what I've looked at least is like what is too much for me may not be too much for you. So it's not
Right.
that I'm not.
No,
everybody's mentally strong, but
you're right.
every individual person, they have that point where it's too much. And to say to somebody like, if I was on SEAL Team 6 and they did that, like those guys are, their levels this much, but for somebody else that way maxes how they're going to do. So I think everybody, I always try to tell veterans every time I talk to them is that, you made it through, enlisting in the military, you made it through basic, you made it through AIT, you went to a unit, you're mentally strong. It's just, you have to be able to recognize what's too much and you have to be able to talk about it. And you can't be ashamed. It's the same thing we're talking about in aircraft and say like, this is too much for me. Like somebody say like, oh, what's your problem? Or why are you being such a pussy? Like how you like not to that language, but for some people, your level is here, your threshold's here and everything. So that's like, I not to stamp the damn
No,
what you said, but
you're right.
Mentally,
yeah,
mentally
that's
strong,
that's not necessarily what I meant.
Yeah.
I'm just, for whatever reason, I'm able to go to bed and wake up the next day and try and fight harder. And everyone's worst day is their own worst day.
Exactly.
So my worst day is much different than your worst day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no one else's business to tell you that, well, that's not that bad. My worst pain is my worst pain.
Right.
And yours is your own. But like someone said in the chat, just knowing that there's someone you can talk to.
Mm-hmm.
I know if I've got a couple close friends and I may not talk to them every day, but if I called them and said, "Hey man, we need, like, can you come over?" They would be there.
Right.
And that's, my door's always open. That's something I stress, as the first sergeant in the company, that, hey, call me anytime, text me anytime, you can come over anytime, I'll come over anytime. Just knowing that there's a resource out there. Someone's been through something similar. It may not be the same thing, but there are people out there that have been through those similar experiences and are ready, willing, and able to talk to you or listen.
Yeah, no, that's the thing is I challenge any veteran that's listening or any veterans out there. You have to take a step back and it's like Jason said, like my worst, what was it again? What you're saying, you said it more eloquently than I did. Like
my everyone's worst day is their own worst day.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to steal that from them, but that's a true thing. It's like when you hear people tell stories, you're just like, it's very easy to sometimes be like, what are you talking about? Like I did A, B, and C, or I saw X, Y, and Z, but you have to remember that whatever that is, like I've learned, I guess I kind of look at my kids, like my kids are stronger than me in a lot of different ways, but and so is my wife and other people, but you know, it's hard to like, sometimes it's very easy to say like, hey, what is wrong with you? That wasn't that bad. And you have to be like, dude, I can understand that. Like,
Right.
and I challenge all veterans to do that, no matter what you've seen, everything you've seen, you just have to like step back, and everybody that knows me, it's funny to say, like, you have to listen, like, Che, listen. And that's the thing I want to tell Jason and going there. I do listen, like, but you know, I didn't want to go this dark quick. I used to like, leave it to the end, but it's fine. No, but if there is like, there's a ticker going at the bottom at the Veterans Crisis Line. You know, you can always, if you can't call another veteran and feel comfortable and talk to them, please do call the crisis hotline. It's 1-800-273-8255. Press 1, or you can text 838-255. It's important. Someone out there can listen to you, and there's other options out there, and it's a serious thing. I don't want to get deep into it. I mean, but it's fine. Well, it's kind of why I did this, actually. So I'm glad it went that way. It's important. Everybody out there, if you have a problem, most people know how to get a hold of me. If you're in the group, you can DM me, and I'll be able to listen to it. And if I can't help you, I definitely will find someone that can help you. So let's go to a different whiskey now. I feel like we had a different whiskey after that. That's like a deep thing. So
sorry, my bad.
So you brought Eagle Rare. Eagle Rare store pick from Third Base. So Eagle Rare, if you don't know what Eagle Rare is and you're on this whiskey channel, you probably should delete it. All joking aside, but Eagle Rare, actually, some facts, and we have some friends that are crazy Eagle Rare fans, but that's Eagle me, other people that are crazy, but you know, Eagle Rare products were actually originated with Seagram's Corporation back in 1975. Charles Beam was actually the person that introduced this label in 1975 through Seagram. So all the Eagle Rares are 10 years, around 10 years. Mash bill number 1. So Buffalo Trace, they're now currently owned by Sazerac, and it's distilled in Buffalo Trace in Frankfort, Kentucky. Eagle Rare still picks are yummy, but 10 years, and it's actually mash bill 1, and we have some other stuff. It shares some other mash bills with Buffalo Trace, which is one of my favorites for people that know. But thanks for bringing that. We're going to enjoy that. Have a pour of that after that. So
I think for the money.
The old money, but
well,
now
the point where the retail money.
The retail is like $32 now, like $75. If you can get it for $75, honestly, a 10-year whiskey.
Honestly,
a 10-year bourbon. You should actually pull the trigger on it. It's really good. Third Base out of Chicago, if I remember.
No,
where are they at? I thought they were
California.
Chicago. I didn't know that. Okay,
yeah.
So we'll pass it to the guys behind
I thought
the
so.
scenes.
Am I wrong? Third Base Market and Spirits. Please fact check me on that.
Somebody put it in comments. No, I'm kidding. No, it's fine. So cheers.
Cheers. Absolutely. I swear that these come from California. Yeah. Fact checkers prove me right again.
Though. Cheaper than a tank of gas. So yes. We're going to try it now. So there's two things moving forward in this podcast we're going to avoid. And if you know me, it's kind of crazy, is we're not going to talk about COVID. And we're not going to talk about politics, which is.
Can I make a comment about tank of gas? So me and my wife.
Is it political?
It's not political now. So me and my wife have, even while I was deployed, tossed around the idea of buying a truck and a camper. And when I got back from the deployment last year, we took a 6,500-mile road trip in 18 days across this. Beautiful.
He brought
country.
Back like 135 bottles of bourbon, if I remember.
It was like 75, but yeah, it was a lot. However, we tossed around the idea and went back and forth, and finally like, no, we'll hold off. Well, this winter we brought the idea back up again, and so I go out and buy a 1-ton diesel. The day before, diesel prices went from $3.99 to $4.99. So that's my luck, I suppose. We won't,
or stupidity,
or stupidity. Yeah, but now we can travel the country and take our home with us. But no,
or you could drive the Corvette or the Jeep. Yeah.
No, the Jeep's gone.
Oh, he sold the Jeep.
I had to.
Oh, okay.
I couldn't justify 4 vehicles for 2 people.
I was wondering because I was like, why is he driving the gas guzzler when he could drive the Jeep? But okay,
the Jeep's a gas guzzler. dude. I almost brought the Corvette tonight. I did.
It's actually nice weather. You could have.
Yeah.
But don't. You need to get rid of the Corvette, though. You're getting too old for that. You get a couple more years, you're going to be in that midlife crisis.
That's when you buy the Corvette.
No, you don't. Everyone knows it back then. Don't do it.
So, I got the jean shorts and the white New Balances and the calf high socks, man. I'm ready for summer.
That's true. So we got dark. So what's crazy about what I think is super awesome about Jason, for the people that know, and I don't know if you look over his left shoulder, you can see one of his projects. So
one of my hobbies.
I asked him, like, how does he cope with what he's seeing and do some things. Like, Jason has some pretty interesting hobbies. My hobbies are like starting a podcast, drinking whiskey. Well, his are actually pretty interesting. So two of his hobbies, if you don't know already, is number one is he's super into candles. He makes candles. So he brought us a candle here today. He's doing candles. So he's cutting the glasses.
Not very well yet.
Yeah,
I'm working on it.
His hobby is, you can't see it. It looks awesome from here.
Right.
Everybody look.
Right.
He's doing a great job. I don't know how to do it. But so are you coming up with the fragrances yourself?
No, so I'm buying the scents and mixing it with the wax. So I'm heating up the wax, adding it, pouring it at the right temperature, and I mean, I'll hang out in the basement on a Saturday afternoon and cut 10 bottles, and I'll maybe get
cut them well, but you're trying.
I'll maybe get 3 or 4.
Right
now. I've had people ask about, like, hey, I want to buy that from you. I'm like, no, you cannot. See, exactly. This is
my candle. Okay.
No, that's Jay's. I think I got.
And he has a fragrance now that's apple maple bourbon. So
yeah,
it's nice. It's actually.
And that wax, and I can like nerd out.
Please do, because this is being recorded, so it will be used against you in the court of law.
Like so wax and wicks, like finding the right blend of wax with the right amount by weight of scent and the right wick to burn it properly. Like I've gone through 3 different 10-pound blocks of wax trying to figure out, to get the best scent throw. So I've got some at home that, from me to you.
We just lost 5 people live.
Sorry. I told you I could nerd out here for a second. But like I've got some at home that actually are cut very well, but sitting over there, you wouldn't be able to smell it. So that I think is the right. I think I've got the right combination there. It's just, and I don't know if that's a coping thing or not. Maybe it is, and I don't realize it.
Right.
It's just something that it eats up some time in the winter. My wife burns candles every night,
so it's a money saving thing. You buy a truck,
right? I mean, so like
pay for the gas. I get it. My wife, you guys can't see it. If you were to like view around here, like these guys can see it. There's probably like at least $1,200 worth of candles in our house right now.
Refilling those those containers that when the wax is empty, instead of throwing them out, it costs me like 50 cents. So
$39.95 is the sellers.
Yeah. So those Yankee candles or whatever you're buying. So for Christmas, I bought containers and made everyone on my Christmas list got candles for Christmas that I made. Saving some money there. It cost me like $10 to make the candles, and everyone was happy with their candle. But I don't know. It's just one of those things. One day I'm like, I think I could cut these bottles. Obviously, it's a work in progress. I've got some that are really, really good. Those are the ones that
obviously I didn't get one of those, but
those were given away and food bank raffles and stuff like that.
No, but he has there's some local charities that Jason actually has given those away, and like somebody like new to the bourbon world, because there's people that aren't like Ben Candle is buy it now candle. So someone's saying like, give me the candle, I want it now. But he has actually donated a lot of that, which is pretty awesome, and that's what's pretty cool about the hobbies that we have. Even whiskey here in Columbus, whiskey
is ridiculous,
but it's a huge charity. There's a lot of stuff that's going on that's really good stuff. So takes me to the next hobby you have,
right?
Which I don't want you to be an internet sensation, because I hope I can do that. But Jason actually has a cooking channel. How many episodes have you? How many? Versions have you done?
I was actually, someone tried to get me to start this during the whole COVID era. because I've always cooked a lot.
But it's cooking on the fly.
Yes.
YouTube videos.
Yeah, there's a Facebook channel of the
Cooking
same
on
name.
the fly.
And unfortunately, because of what was going on this previous mobilization, I had to put that on hold. And I did not realize how much time a YouTube channel would take. It is insane. Just the editing of the video. A 10-minute video that I put up on YouTube of me cooking, I've spent 6 hours editing and cropping.
Which is different what we're doing now. We're doing it live. I like it's the same thing. Like, hey,
well, no, but you have all your prep work and all this other stuff
true,
that
but
goes
it's live
into
and
it.
there's no editing. I get it. That's pretty cool. And I found myself and gotten yelled at by my wife. I'm like laying in bed. It's like 10:15. One of your episodes come off, and I'm sitting there watching you make Caesar salad on the go. And my wife's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "It's Jason making Caesar salad." But I'm just telling you, if you want to be an internet sensation, maybe you lose some. Like, your wife's not going to hear this. Like, you gotta like lose some clothes underneath the apron. Yeah. I mean, if you guys are watching it, I mean, I'm glad in the video he looks a little fatter than me at this time, but he's not.
Yeah, but I look a little bit more built up.
Yeah, a little bit built. But no, but it is. But it's pretty amazing though. I think that's totally awesome that you're doing that. And honestly, I don't know. Like, I asked you those questions earlier about your coping mechanism. And it's funny. You just said earlier, like, it may be one of the things that you do, and I think that is.
So I mean, I look forward to. I work from home mostly, and so I have that. I get off work and I have those 3-4 hours to cook dinner and it's I honestly cook that long sometimes. I made one of my favorite things to do is make homemade pasta. Total waste of time. Takes so long. You can buy pasta's not expensive either. You can get a box of pasta for $1.99.
Right.
Throw it in the pot of boiling water. But making it, doing like my own stuffed and rolled tortellini, cutting them out with I use a wine glass to cut out the tortellinis and fill them and roll them up. And I enjoy, creating that stuff, turning these.
Give the gifts of bread. We actually brought bread. We talked about the name change, Whiskey to Warriors, Pours with Patriots. And it wasn't, I think somebody earlier said weed. It was wheat. With Warriors. So Jason brought us some bread. So it's good to break bread.
So it's a 4-ingredient. Basically takes me about 18 hours start to finish. It's just and it's great with dipping in oil and stuff like that.
We have some garlic behind that scenes. We messed up. We should have brought the garlic here. It would have been great.
No, but makes the house smell so good.
That's pretty good.
I make a sandwich loaf bread and make my own, sandwiches and stuff with them. It's just, I don't know why I started doing it. I just randomly was like, I think I can make that. Start watching cooking channels and stuff like that. And it's like, I could do that. But yeah, it's, now we're chewing.
Yeah, we're like totally chewing. Like, it's actually really good. So sorry, everybody. It's like, but somebody said I'm working out the weed with Warriors. We don't know.
No. Yeah. So it's it maybe and there are nights I cook these extravagant meals, and some nights I don't. But I'll even make my own tortillas, and I don't even know if they taste better than what you buy in the store, but they taste different, and it makes it taste kind of authentic. And it's just I just thoroughly enjoy doing that. I know my wife thoroughly enjoys doing that as well.
Obviously, I mean, I think I like to cook too. I probably cook more than my wife does. I hope she's not listening, but I can't imagine But no, it's pretty cool. I mean, I thought that was pretty neat when you did that with the things. But check it out. It's what's the handle again?
Cooking on the Fly.
Cooking on the Fly. There is an episode where he almost cuts his finger off. I highly recommend that one.
Yeah, I was able to edit that out, but I did cut the tip.
He almost cut his finger off. But luckily he's editing in. It's not really to the point. But So we're hitting our hour mark, hour and 5. So I think we're going to start winding it down.
Sure.
We can drink some more. But I just want to thank you for coming down into the basement. Thank
No,
you
anytime.
for coming down for episode 2. I think it's pretty, like I said earlier, as I'm doing this, I'm trying to find people, honestly, that are a little bit different than I am. And the Army National Guard is like I said before, I can't tell how many jokes I made about the National Guard and reserves and stuff like that. But, in 2003, we actually had a National Guard unit assigned to us in Afghanistan, and they performed amazingly. And then, like, the more you look at, like, the things you've done outside of Ohio is amazing. I mean, a lot of people think, like, hey, I'm going to be the guy or gal that there's a flood and I'm going to go down and help this. But you can see in your career in 17 years, 2 deployments, combat deployments, I'd say. I mean, the last one is a little bit thing, but then, 2 humanitarian deployments. And then we did allude to, what you guys just did with, the fight on COVID of mobilizing and backfilling hospitals, which is pretty amazing. So I thank you for your service, truly. And we're going to get dark again. So one of the things I did want to, we talked about a little bit before, but I want to end up one episode to talk about veterans that are no longer with us and have ended their life. So Jason talked about in the past few months, or actually a few weeks, there were 2 of them. The one we're going to highlight tonight is actually Sergeant Coleton Lytle. He was actually in the U.S. Army National Guard. He passed away on January 30th, 2002 at 24 years old. Way too early. He actually is a 2016 graduate from Zane Trice High School in Chillicothe, Ohio. At the time, he was like Jason, he was actually a citizen soldier. He was employed with LRT Restoration Technologies in Columbus and was a combat medic in the Ohio National Guard with the HHB, 1st to the 134th Field Artillery Regiment. So he deployed with them. So obviously, those are those things we talked about earlier. I'm sure as a combat medic, he saw some things that were too much for him, which is fine. He deployed on the war terror. He was super proud of the people that know him. Andrew, I hope you're listening, and I know you and your battalion knew him well, and I know he's proud of what he did. Unfortunately, with his passing, he left behind his fiance and an unborn daughter. So again, from the people I've talked to and things I've read online, is that if you had a chance to know him, he was a super energetic guy, charismatic, fun-loving, loved serving his country, and I just wish he'd reached out and talked to somebody and before. So again, if you're listening or you know someone that's a veteran that needs to talk to somebody, absolutely call the Veterans Hotline, 1-800-273-8255 and press 1, or you can text 838-255, or this is not a joke aside, DM me. And again,
me.
anybody
Absolutely.
that's on there, DM people you know. I don't have the answers, but I will definitely find someone. So, Jason, thank you for episode 2. We'll see everybody in a couple weeks. I'm glad that we figured out the audio visual stuff that's working. And thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Thank you. Have a good night.